Have you ever had a gut feeling that saved your life? Not just a hunch, not just a weird vibe, but that electric moment when your entire nervous system screams at you that something is profoundly, catastrophically wrong? I have, and I'm still not sure if I listened to it fast enough. My name is Marcus, and I'm going to tell you about the worst afternoon of my life. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday in October, about 3 years ago. The kind of Tuesday where nothing is supposed to happen. The kind of day where you're just existing, moving through life on autopilot, thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner, and whether you're remembered to pay your electric bill. I was alone in my apartment. That matters. The apartment itself was nothing special. A one-bedroom in a mid-rise building in Portland, Oregon. The kind of place young professionals rent when they're not quite making enough money to buy but too tired of roommate drama to keep living with strangers. The building was built in the 1980s, so it had that specific kind of dated charm that means cheap rent. Wood-paneled walls in the hallway. Carpet that had definitely been installed before I was born. An elevator that made a grinding sound when it moved, like it was slowly dying and accepting its fate. But it was mine, and it was quiet, and it was safe. Or at least, I thought it was. On this particular Tuesday, I had called in sick to work. I wasn't actually sick. I was just exhausted. I had been working overtime at my job as a project manager for a tech company, the kind of job that slowly kills your soul through 1,000 small paper cuts and unnecessary meetings. My boss had been writing me about a deadline, and I had just needed a day to decompress, to sit in my apartment, watch movies, order too much Thai food, and exist without anyone asking me anything. That's all I wanted. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was sitting on my couch reading a book. Nothing fancy. Just a thriller I had picked up from the library the week before, the kind with a shiny cover and a one-sentence premise designed to hook you immediately. Outside my window, the October rain was coming down hard. That specific kind of Pacific Northwest rain that doesn't feel angry, just persistent, relentless. The kind that makes you grateful to be inside. My apartment was warm. I had made tea. I was, for the first time in weeks, genuinely relaxed. The book was terrible, but I was determined to finish it anyway. I was on page 173 when I heard the noise. It was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. A soft sound coming from the direction of my kitchen. Not a bang or a crash. Just a small, shuffling sound. The kind of sound a cat might make if it knocked over a glass. Except I don't have a cat. I have nothing that moves on its own in that apartment. I live alone. The sound lasted maybe 2 seconds, and then it was gone. I waited, listening. Nothing. Just the ambient hum of the building. The refrigerator running in the kitchen. The faint sound of a neighbor's television through the wall. I told myself it was nothing. Probably the building settling. Or maybe the upstairs neighbor had dropped something. These old buildings make noise. It's part of their character, the landlord had told me when I signed a lease. I went back to my book. I underlined a passage that I thought was clever. I took a sip of tea. Everything returned to normal. Everything was fine. Except something in my chest didn't feel fine. There was a small, quiet voice in the back of my mind saying that the sound had come from inside the apartment. Not above, inside. But I pushed that voice away because I knew I had locked the door. I always locked the door. I was paranoid about that, actually. Even when I was just stepping out to check the mail, I would lock the door. It was a habit left over from childhood, from living in a neighborhood where my parents had impressed upon me the importance of security. The voice in my chest was just anxiety, just paranoia, just the result of too much caffeine and too much stress at work. I kept reading. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. I had gotten to a section of the book where the protagonist was discovering that someone had been in his house while he was asleep, which was unfortunate timing, given my current state of mind. I was just thinking about closing the book and putting on a movie instead, when I heard it again. This time it was different. It wasn't a shuffling sound. It was more deliberate. A soft creak, like someone had stepped on a floorboard. It came from the direction of my bedroom. My body went rigid. Every muscle tensed at once. I stopped breathing. I don't know why I stopped breathing. It doesn't help you hear better. It's just what your body does when it's terrified. The sound came again. Creak. Definite. Someone was moving around in my bedroom. My first instinct was to check if I had actually locked the door. I got up from the couch. My legs felt weak, like they were suddenly made of rubber. I walked to the front door and checked the deadbolt. It was locked. It was definitely locked. I could see that the mechanism was engaged. No one had come through the front door. I would have heard them. The door made a loud click when you unlocked it, and it squeaked when you opened it. I would have heard. I stood in my living room for a long time just listening. The hum of the refrigerator, the sound of the rain outside, the television from the neighbor's apartment. Nothing else. The building had gone back to being normal. I told myself that I had imagined it. Stress can do that to you. Stress can make you hear things that aren't there. I had been working too hard. I needed to relax. I needed to sit back down and keep reading and stop letting my imagination run away with me. I sat back down on the couch. I picked up my book. I tried to focus on the words, but the letters were just shapes. They weren't forming meaning in my brain. All I could think about was the sound. That creak. Had it really come from my bedroom, or had it come from outside, or from above? The more I thought about it, the less certain I became. Memory is weird like that. The more you examine it, the more it distorts. Then I heard it again, but this time it wasn't just a creak. This time I heard something else, a soft clicking sound. It was coming from the direction of my bedroom, but it didn't sound quite like footsteps. It sounded more like a camera shutter? No, that was ridiculous. That was impossibly specific and nonsensical. Why would there be a camera in my bedroom? I was being paranoid. I was freaking myself out over nothing. I was going to close my eyes, take a deep breath, and I was going to get up and walk into my bedroom and prove to myself that there was nothing wrong, that I was alone in my apartment and everything was fine. I got up. I walked toward the hallway that leads to my bedroom. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The hallway was maybe 8 feet long. There was a small table with a lamp on it, a mirror on the wall, a bookshelf on the right side. The kind of thin, cheap bookshelf that you can get at a big box store for about $40. I had filled it with a combination of actual books and decorative items, little trinkets I had picked up over the years. A snow globe from a trip to Colorado, a photo of my family, a vase that my mother had given me that I didn't particularly like but felt obligated to display because she would notice if it was gone. As I moved down the hallway toward my bedroom, I glanced at the bookshelf. It was a reflexive glance. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just passing by and my eyes landed on it. And that's when I saw something that made my entire body freeze. Behind the gap in the books. Behind the shelf itself. I could see something. An eye. A human eye. Looking directly at me. My brain didn't process what I was seeing at first. It didn't make sense. It was impossible. I was staring at the bookshelf, and there was definitely a face behind it. Not a full face, just an eye, and part of the bridge of a nose. The eye was dark. It was focused. It was watching me. I stood completely still. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything had stopped. The world had narrowed down to this one impossible moment. The moment where I realized that someone was in my apartment. Someone had gotten inside somehow, and they had been watching me from behind my own bookshelf for God knows how long. The eye didn't blink. It didn't move. It just watched me. And then I heard it. The clicking sound. Faster now. Repeated. Click, 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 click. A camera shutter. Definitely a camera shutter. Definitely a camera shutter. Whoever was behind the bookshelf was taking photographs. They were taking photographs of me, through the gaps in the books. Through the small spaces between volumes, they had a clear line of sight to the couch where I had been sitting. They could see everything from there. They could see me reading my book. They could see me reading my book. They could see me drinking my tea. They could see everything. My survival instinct finally kicked in. I turned and I ran, not toward the bedroom, toward the front door. I didn't think about it. There was no decision-making process. I just moved. The apartment suddenly felt too small. The walls felt like they were closing in. The figure behind the bookshelf was now moving. I could hear movement, frantic movement. They had realized that I had seen them. They were coming out. I could hear the bookshelf scraping against the wall as they pushed it aside. I got to the front door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the deadbolt. The lock seemed to take forever to open, even though it was probably only a second or two. Then I was pulling the door open. The hallway of my apartment building stretched out in front of me. Empty. Silent. I didn't look back. I ran for the elevator. Hit the button. Waited. The elevator felt like it was taking forever. I could hear my apartment door opening behind me. I could hear footsteps. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors were closing, I got one last glimpse of my hallway. A figure was standing in front of my apartment door. I couldn't see their face. They were wearing dark clothes. But they had something in their hands. A camera with a large lens. A professional camera. They were holding it at their side. They didn't try to follow me into the elevator. They just stood there, watching as the doors closed. The elevator ride down felt like it took hours. It probably took 30 seconds. My hands were shaking. My breathing was erratic. I was trapped in this small metal box descending through the building, and all I could think about was that face behind the bookshelf. That eye. The deliberate way they had been photographing me. The fact that they hadn't tried to hurt me. They had just been watching. They had just been taking pictures. For how long? 3 hours? Had it been the entire time I was sitting on the couch? Had they been there when I came home? Had they been there the day before? The elevator reached the lobby and the doors opened. I ran out of the building and into the rain. I didn't have shoes on. I didn't have a jacket. I didn't have my phone or my wallet. I just ran. I made it to a coffee shop across the street, and I used their phone to call the police. When the officers arrived, I led them back to my apartment. They went in first. Their hands were on their weapons. They were taking this seriously. And they came back out about 20 minutes later and told me that there was no one inside. The apartment was empty. My bedroom window had been forced open. Whoever had gotten inside had escaped back the same way before the police could arrive. The police found a lot of photographs scattered around my apartment. Hundreds of them, printed photographs of me, sitting on my couch, sleeping in my bed, showering, changing clothes, eating breakfast. Some of them were dated. They went back 3 months. 3 months. There was a person in my apartment for 3 months, and I had no idea. They were living in the spaces I wasn't using, behind the bookshelf, in my closet when it was empty, in the spaces between furniture. They never caught him. The investigation went nowhere. There were no clear fingerprints on the photographs. The camera he had left behind was untraceable. The window that had been forced open had no useful evidence. He just vanished, like he had never existed. Except the photographs proved he had. The photographs proved that someone had studied me for months, had gotten close enough to touch me while I slept, had been intimate enough with my space to know where the best angles were for photography, to know how to get in and out without leaving a trace. I moved out 3 days later. I couldn't go back into that apartment alone. I couldn't sit on that couch. I couldn't sleep in that bed. Every piece of furniture in that place felt contaminated. I still have nightmares about that moment when I realized the eye was watching me. I still check my locks 4 times before bed. I still keep my curtains drawn at all times, even in my new apartment. I still can't be alone in a room without checking behind furniture and under beds. I'm still not okay. And somewhere out there, he still has those photographs. Or he made copies. Or he's taking photographs of someone else right now. And whoever that person is, they don't know yet. They're sitting on their couch right now, drinking tea, reading a book, completely unaware that they're being watched. And when they finally figure it out, they'll realize that something evil doesn't announce itself. Evil watches. Evil waits. Evil stands behind bookshelves and takes photographs for 3 hours straight while you have no idea your life has already been violated in ways you'll never fully comprehend.